Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead video. So in this one here, I wanted to talk about Rick Grimes because we haven't talked about Rick Grimes in a while, and I actually saw a really interesting story about, I guess, the very first episode and how there really could have been a prequel, and I guess that was sort of a plan that they had a long time ago that just never happened. And so I want to talk about that and talk about, a possible like Rick Grimes prequel and just get into some of that story there because it is really interesting. Like there is something about Atlanta and what happened, when the apocalypse first happened that is really interesting. And so yeah, I want to get into that here. So before going further, make sure to be a subscriber if you do want to get all my Walking Dead content like this. Now, I saw this in an article from CBR.com about, I guess, a potential prequel here, and I found this really interesting. So, apparently this was talked about a really long time ago here, but the actor who actually plays the soldier that's in the tank, actually, with Rick Grimes in the very first episode, actually talked about, I guess, an idea, or I guess a conversation the actor had with Frank Darabont. And so what was said here was, Frank Darabont's like, I think it would be really cool to tell the prequel story about how Atlanta fell. Do Black Hawk Down, but with zombies, and have a few of the main characters pass through, but like a Twilight Zone episode. The lead will be you, and your character will go through, but you're a soldier, and all these horrible things happen, and the chain of command breaks down, and eventually you have to take out your superior officer to save a bunch of people, and then eventually, in the end, you get bit, and you crawl into a tank, and you have this grenade, and you're gonna blow yourself up, and then you set the grenade next to you, and you die, and then we reprise the scene from the pilot where Rick crawls into the tank, and there's a zombie there, and if you look closely, I play that zombie because we were setting up this prequel that we were gonna do. Now, honestly, I think this would be absolutely just insane to do because I think that the Atlanta story needs to be told. We haven't seen a lot of it. Like, we've learned of information here and there, and like, obviously, if you've watched like The Ones Who Live and stuff like that, they get into some stuff there, but there's a lot of stuff about like how Atlanta fell that really is so interesting, and like obviously how it sets up Rick Grimes' story. I think that this is something that Tales of the Walking Dead should have gotten into, or like do like a limited series on this, like a 6-episode series on something like this. This is the stuff that everyone would watch. Like honestly, this is what people really care about, is like a lot of that story there, because it's so much that's out there that I want to see a lot more of it. And I can't believe that like however many years later since that episode aired, we still don't know a lot about that story. Like, I don't know what Scott Gimple is waiting for when it comes to a lot of those stories. I really just like, I don't understand it in terms of all the spin-off stuff, because Tales of the Walking Dead obviously told an Atlanta story like this, right? And obviously what was said here was like, maybe it was like a Twilight Zone episode, and you could see how that episode there of Tales of the Walking Dead was kind of like a Twilight Zone episode. And so maybe you're thinking, because obviously that episode wasn't the greatest, you're like, well, a story like that just won't work. But the thing is, it's because that story didn't matter. It's because those characters didn't matter. Like in the end, the story just never really, added anything to The Walking Dead. It was just something that, it was like a Twilight Zone episode for sure, and I really do like that aspect to it, but I think you should have had it actually matter for the story, where the characters actually appeared in some way, and like, I don't know, I just think that's the issue with Tales of the Walking Dead, is like every episode for the most part didn't really matter. Like there was that 35 years later episode, which was really interesting, but like it hasn't mattered overall yet, so I don't know. And then there's the obviously Alpha episode, which does matter. Like that was the one episode that I actually thought was really good. And I think the other ones honestly could have been a lot better if the stories were related to other stories from The Walking Dead. And that's the issue with Tales of the Walking Dead. I've said that a lot. Like, even when I was watching the show, I was like, these stories need to matter a lot more. You need to make these like way better connections here to other stories and characters from The Walking Dead, and they never did that. And I just think with the Atlanta story, like honestly, they almost told this story here, but it wasn't the story of that soldier. So it wasn't necessarily a prequel, even though it kind of was a prequel in some sense, right? So I think that this really would have been an awesome idea. And honestly, The Walking Dead really did amazing things for a long time with like the webisodes where we saw a lot of backstories to certain things, and it really just added so much. And I don't know why they're not telling stories like that anymore, because it was the best. It was honestly the best getting those stories. Like, not everyone watched it, but if you really wanted to like know more about this backstory or whatever, like it just added so much to each season, and it built up so much hype to like the next season of The Walking Dead. And that's what, I think The Walking Dead spinoffs need right now, is they need a lot of like world building outside of the shows, and a lot of like connecting this to that and everything. And I just don't know why Gimple isn't doing any of that right now. Like, I just don't understand that aspect to it. Like, we'll see where Dead City goes here, but it just feels like that is something that is really missing from The Walking Dead. And I just hope that they get into more stories like this, because I think that an Atlanta prequel would be amazing, because it would be like a Rick Grimes prequel, right? Like, not necessarily, but I do want to get into that idea there. So in terms of a Rick Grimes prequel, and if it could ever happen, I think the interesting thing about that is it's really hard to tell a story with Rick Grimes around that time, because not a lot happened, right? But I think there are ways to tell stories with Rick Grimes around that time, where maybe if you're telling the story of how Atlanta fell, like, you could have other connections to Rick Grimes. It doesn't have to be the whole tank story, right? Like, there could be some other stuff with the hospital. I know they've done things like that already, but like, you could do other things. Like, there's other things that you're able to come up with there. The Ones Who Live did that. Like, they actually connected some stuff with a lot of the characters, right? Like with Okafor and the CRM. Like, you can actually tell really amazing stories and like do a lot of like cool backstory stuff there that I think a lot of people are going to really like, because I think that's what's missing right now. So a Rick Grimes prequel, I think they have to do. Like, you don't have to have Rick Grimes a part of it, obviously, but I think telling the story of how Atlanta fell and like having connections to Rick Grimes in some sense is almost like a Rick Grimes prequel. Like, it's not going to be that necessarily, but you could tell that story in some way. You could have Shane show up, right? Because there was a good like month or so there, and like, honestly, there could be a lot of characters that show up there. Like, this idea like of a prequel series to The Walking Dead, like an actual, like, say it's 10 episodes, 6 episodes, 8 episodes, or whatever. Maybe it's 6 episodes. Like, honestly, it's a really good idea. I think that they should do this. I think right now would be an awesome time to do that. Like, you have the other spinoffs going right now. Why don't you just have limited series based off of like, you know, stories like this? Just have a story of like 6 episodes focused on how Atlanta fell. Do something else on like another story on something else at some point in The Walking Dead, right? Like, you could actually do this and have like different stories every single year. I mean, honestly, it probably would be better than Tales of the Walking Dead. I feel like there would be a lot more interest in these awesome ideas. So I think that they do have to do that. I think that at some point, like, eventually get around to it, because soon a lot of these characters aren't going to be around. Like, honestly, their stories will end at some point here. Like, I do think by 2030, 31, around there, probably 2030, a lot of these stories are going to be over. I think that the reunion story at that point will be told. And like, what do you do after that? Like, you only have the next however many years here to get into these ideas. So I think that they have to start getting into this stuff. And I hope that Gimple has some of these things planned. Like, maybe not necessarily this idea here, but like other ideas. Like, honestly, there's so many things that you're able to do. Like a Whisperer backstory. I know that they kind of did that with Alpha's backstory, but there's still a lot of stuff that you're able to get into there. Like, there's just a lot of things that they could tell, like, in like an overall, like, you know, 6 episode series or something, not like a 1 episode thing. Like, they really could do that, and I think it would work really well. And for Rick Grimes, I find it really interesting as to where his story can go in the future, and like other stories that you're able to tell with the character. Like, obviously his story is not done, because he does want to come back and play Rick Grimes, and he talked a lot about like survival horror, and like, I watched a movie recently that was actually a lot like survival horror, and it was like, you know, the characters, I guess, just being in the apocalypse for the first time and like having to like survive and all that. And I think that that's what Andrew Lincoln wants. He wants to tell stories where the characters are in situations like that, where it's like, how do they survive? How do they get out of a place like this? And I think that's what they have to do here. And that's why I think that variant walkers honestly are the way to go with this story. That's such an easy way to tell a story like that. Or even like, if you look at episode 6 of Dead City, we're going to get the bear scene happening with Maggie, right? Like, that is literally survival horror right there. That's going to be absolutely insane. How does she get out of a situation like that? So there's a lot of things that you're able to do there with Rick Grimes, and I'm sure that they're aware of a lot of stuff. I know that Gimple likely has a lot of things planned with where to go with a lot of this here. And I'm just interested in seeing where Rick Grimes' story goes next, because I feel like we're going to learn some details on all that very soon. Like, I know that Dead City is airing right now, but Comic-Con is next month, and like the finale of Dead City is this month. I think that sometime very soon we are going to find out some information about like what's happening with Rick Grimes and I guess the future of Rick Grimes' character. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see, but I thought that this news here, honestly, like, I really want a story on how Atlanta fell, and not just that, like, you have to have the connections to Rick Grimes. Like, it could literally just be like little scenes here and there that are like obviously Easter eggs to how Rick Grimes ended up here or there, and like all of that. You could have John Bernthal actually come back and like play a role in that too in some way. Like maybe it's not how Atlanta fell, but it's like in that last episode he's there somehow, or maybe just make up something with the story where he was a part of something, or I don't know. I just think a prequel like this would be amazing, and I think if you focused on this and Rick Grimes and you told more stories there, it would be really amazing. Like honestly, I don't know why they're not telling stories on stuff like this. You know, like that's the thing. There's so much out there. And that's the frustrating thing when it comes to The Walking Dead, is that there's so many ideas and we just don't get anything. And we just don't get any of those stories told. And I don't know, like I think that Gimple is doing a really amazing job with the spinoffs and certain stories and all of that. But I just think with connecting everything, there's not a lot of that yet. And I'm still really holding out hope that we're going to see Dwight in the finale. Like, I don't know how they could do a story like that, if it's going to be more of like a post-credit scene, or like, you know, he shows up at the end or something like that. But I would really like a story like that. I think for season 3, you need to have Dwight there. I think that if season 3 doesn't have any sort of connections to Dwight or any other characters, I'll be excited to watch it. Like, I'm still gonna watch everything, but it's just like you want to connect more of that now, and I think it's time, because season 1 and season 2 of Dead City, and the same thing for The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon. Like, honestly, if you look at The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon season 2, the most exciting thing there was the fact that Laurent and Ash were going back to the Commonwealth, because you made a connection there. Like, that was amazing to see, and we want more of that. We want there to be a lot more connections to the overall story, because it just builds everything up so much, and everything feels a lot more connected together. And so I hope that The Walking Dead Dead City Season 2 does a lot more of that here. We haven't seen anything really yet, so hopefully we do in the last 3 episodes here, because The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon only really had that connection there in the very last episode. So like, we could see that here for The Walking Dead Dead City. In the last episode, there's some sort of reveal or connection. Like, you know that they are going to do stuff like that, because they are really good with connecting a lot of that. I get it for like the first seasons of these shows, like to not do that a lot, because you want to connect everything in some way, but you want to tell the story as like these standalone stories, right? But I think now is where you start to connect things a lot more, and you do it more and more each season. And so far for Dead City Season 2, we haven't seen that yet. So I hope that in the finale, we do see Dwight show up. Like, it would be absolutely insane, and the excitement for season 3 would just be absolutely crazy. Like, I honestly can't even really explain how excited people would be for season 3. Like, it would change so much. Like, a lot of people that haven't watched the show so far will see that and be like, whoa, actually, maybe I should check this out, right? So I hope that it does happen. We'll have to wait and see. And for Rick Grimes, again, I hope that we learn some more information next month at Comic-Con, because it's going to be a really big event, and I know that The Walking Dead should be there, and there's going to be a lot of promotion for The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon Season 3, and also a lot of talk about Dead City Season 3, I imagine, and I mean, they're going to be filming that at that point, I imagine. Like, I know they're supposed to be filming sometime soon, so I'll do a video talking about that and whatnot next, but yeah, anyways, I'm going to leave it here. Definitely post all your thoughts down below. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.